Welcome back to the Authority X Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Schuknecht. And in my book, Unlocking Your Authority X Factor, I share that your personal brand isn't just about promoting an idea, it's about sharing your authentic story, your perspective, and your lived experience. Today's guest is a master at injecting soul, meaning, and strategy into everything he creates. T. Christian Helms is the founder and creative director of Helms Workshop, an award winning branding agency. For more than 15 years, Christian has led the strategy and creative direction for household icons like Jack Daniels and Hershey, alongside cult favorite startups like Austin Beerworks and Howler Brothers. He is a powerhouse when it comes to full scale brand development. But a few years ago, Christian's life took an unexpected turn when he was blindsided by a severe, undiagnosed battle with Lyme disease. He went from running a thriving agency to struggling to cross a room. During a long and unconventional healing journey, he had a major epiphany. The exact same design and branding tools he used to build world-class companies could be used to rebuild his own life. Today, we're going to talk about his transition through that difficult season, how branding serves as a blueprint for building the life you actually want, and we'll uncover the unique authority X factor Christian uses to help people and businesses connect with what matters most. Christian, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kelly. Thanks for having
I I'm so excited to have you on as I have gotten to know you very well in this last year or so. And your message, your story. And so I want to get into that because I think you have just such a powerful message to share with people. So I want to start out by asking you how you would define in your own words your authority X factor. And the way that I describe that is your authority X factor is that unique blend of your experiences, your skill set. What has led you to lead or to serve clients in the way that you do now at Helms Workshop? So how would you describe that, Christian?
Yeah. I grew up as a really curious kid, curious about culture, curious about how the things work, curious about people. Um, Went to school originally for journalism and learned to write. Kind of a dual path of creative writing and, hardcore journalism back when that was a real thing. And at the same time, was taking all of these art classes and the combination of those two were really interesting to me, but I didn't know that was something you could do for a living, that building brands was something people did. I grew up in a small town in the South. The only branding I saw was like Doritos packaging, and that doesn't look like a person made it. It looks like it was spit out by a machine. But the saving grace was that journalism school, and their idea is they want T-shaped people. So people who have a deep expertise in an area, but then have a really broad understanding of all these other things. So they make you take classes in linguistics and language and power and culture and African American studies and all these different aspects that make you kind of a mini authority on a lot of different things. The more broad your knowledge base is, the more you have to pull from, whether you're a storyteller, a brand designer, you name it. So I went to grad school for branding, got an absolute just boot camp of an education that propelled me to internships and all this great stuff in New York. But what it comes down to in terms of that X factor is over the years, I've been able to build an authority in using brand as an unfair advantage in business. And it's something I'm really passionate about. And it's very complicated, but at the same time, it's about transcending the functional benefits of a brand, what it does, what it delivers to you, sort of physically and tangibly, and getting into the emotional benefits and the social benefits of a brand. So, how it makes you feel about yourself, and then what you feel it says about you to other people. That's when you start to get lightning in a bottle. And beyond that, for us, it's all about building brands that bring joy and value to people's lives, that speak to people like people. And then the other side of that coin is driving big results for our partners.
So I learned something new about you because I did not know about your journalism. Maybe I should have known that. I don't remember that if you've told me that before. So I did not know that you studied journalism, and
Yeah.
it's so fascinating to me as you were talking about it. You're so talented in branding, and I'm very jealous of people who have your talent and skill set because I am not a brand person. I can like see good brands, right? Like, and I can feel it. Like you talk about like that feeling that you get from a brand, but I cannot do the actual design work. So you're very talented in that way. But then that's very different from the writing and journalism side of things. Like, it's interesting that you have kind of that blend in you.
I'm a weird mix of creative and analytical. It's a little bit of a unicorn. Sometimes I wonder if I'm a jack of all trades, right? I'm kind of a good writer. I'm kind of a good designer. I'm a kind of a good this. But I have a lot of different skill sets and they come together in brand just beautifully. Like it's what I was made to do. And I'm
Yeah.
so lucky I found it. I went to college before you could get online and learn about all this stuff. So when you were signing up for classes on the phone out of a catalog, right?
Yep, I remember.
Even just finding branding was a miracle because there wasn't a program at Carolina to do that. So that's hence grad school, right? Hence the extra money and the
Yeah.
extra couple of years, but definitely worth it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's amazing kind of just how you find your way, as you go, right? But so it's interesting, the like you talked about, there wasn't really that path at that time. Like I think now there's a little bit more of like you can study graphic design, you can
Right.
maybe, but it's just what you do is so different from maybe prior to our college years, it was like maybe like advertising you would go into. It was a little more like, because when you mentioned Doritos, I think of I had this vision of what was that show, Mr. Mom? Do you remember that movie
Oh,
back?
yeah.
Like she was in advertising.
120,
Remember his
220,
voice?
whatever it takes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
That was what popped into my brain. I was like, it was like the advertising thing, right? And I think of like Super Bowl commercials, whatever. But you're designing brands for like real companies that are local and national. Also, like
Mhm,
you work with both, right? So I want to get into a little bit of. So we'll talk a little bit more about branding, but I want to talk a little bit about the story that I alluded to a little bit because it's a big part of your core message, just what makes you unique in what you do. So a few years ago, you got sick and you kind of went through a whole struggle. So you already had a company, right, when you got
mhm.
sick, and
I did.
then so walk me through kind of like what you were doing, what happened, and how that impacted kind of the next thing for you.
Yeah, we were kind of a hotshot young agency. So we had a lot of attention in the industry. Everybody wanted to work with us. It was a really wonderful time. And during that time, I just started to decline dramatically, where over the course of a couple of months, I went from a person who never sits down and never stops doing something to a guy who couldn't walk across the room without having to lie down and rest. Physical pain, fibromyalgia kind of stuff, joint pain. I felt like an arthritic person. Brain fog so intense that you could tell me a phone number and I couldn't write it down before I'd forget it. And I couldn't hold a conversation with people because my brain was moving so slow that the conversation would just pass me by. They'd ask a question or they'd say something, and my brain would think, this is a good opportunity to say something witty. What would that witty think? What? And then the conversation's already 10 miles down the road, right? So I couldn't
Wow.
even really communicate very well. I had a new son at the time who was a toddler, and my relationship with him was I was the sad, weird guy who had to lie down all the time. It was a mess. And it was about a year and a half before I was diagnosed. I flew all over the country to all these different doctors and was told everything from it's in your head, you need to take a walk in the forest, you have cancer. Like it was all over the place.
Sure.
And we just kept chipping away at it, wife and I, until we found a doctor in New York who diagnosed it. I was overjoyed to know what I had, but he was like, buddy, this is not good news. Like, this is bad because you've had it for so long. There's so much chronic damage that's been done that you're not going to be able to get back to normal. You're going to be somewhat like this the rest of your life. And that wasn't acceptable. We were eventually bounced around all these doctors in New York, finally referred to this doctor in upstate who essentially the elite doctors send you to him if they just don't know what to do. They're like, I don't know, you deal with him. And this guy coached me with probably 3 or 4 phone calls a day for a few years with supplements, protocols, weird food stuff, and just an absolute dramatic lifestyle change that over time got me healthy again. It was amazing. It's a second lease on life. And I wouldn't I learned so much about myself and my family going through that. I wouldn't want to do it again, but I appreciate what I've gotten out of it.
Yeah, yeah. So it was Lyme disease is what you were
Mhm.
diagnosed with. I, of course, thought of you a few weeks ago. I found 2 ticks on my dog and immediately was like, I've got to bring him into the vet and found out that here in Colorado, Lyme disease is like not a thing or like it's not very common.
It's not supposed to be in Texas either, but here I am. So
Yeah.
it can happen, but I'm glad it's much less likely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and so, yeah, of course, like, I had him because I thought of you and, like, it was like, he wasn't having any symptoms, he was fine, and we tested him, he was fine, but still, like, then it made me a little more cautious about just, making sure that we're doing the tick prevention. It's tick season right now in the summer,
Mm,
but also, just I have a little dog and he comes into our bed, like, and so, like, you don't know where, when that
yeah.
could affect other people in the house, and, anyways, thought of you, but, so it was Lyme disease. Now, as a small business owner, the other thing that comes to mind as you talk about that is, like, how does your business survive when you are not functional?
It sort of went on autopilot. I had to lean on the team a little bit more, and I really narrowed the scope of work we were taking on to stuff that I had done before and I was very familiar with, where I could kinda go through the motions. A lot of written communication rather than verbal communication, and it sort of went on life support for a good chunk of time until I got healthy again. It was a fairly stagnant period for an agency that had really been kind of a rocket ship in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. Now so you recovered from that, so was that kind of like a re-entry period into like, it had to be gradual, right? Like, how did the after effect happen in the company?
Well, it's interesting. I finally got to a place where I was getting better, and I was overjoyed, right? I had my life back. But the reality was is I didn't have a life at that point. I had no social life. I hadn't seen a lot of people I know in a couple of years, 3 years maybe. And the business was also, not really doing much. So I kind of had to rebuild both from the ground up, which was a huge opportunity. And funny enough, I leaned on a lot of the things that we do in branding to kind of build back the life in the business that I wanted. Both are so much better and so much stronger, so much healthier than they were before. It was a fortunate skill set to have at that time for sure.
Yeah. Your authority X factor in a way, I would imagine.
Never thought I'd use it on myself, but I
Yeah.
absolutely did.
Yeah. So what were some of those, like, principles or kind of those
Yeah.
ideas that you were able to apply?
You start from the ground up, and the first is discovery, right? And that's really about being just brutally honest with yourself, and kind of setting a baseline for this is who I am, this is what's important to me, etc. And from there, what's your mission? What's your vision? Where do you want to go and how do you want to get there? Who's your audience? Who do you want to be surrounded by? Who do you want to be in the room with? Who do you not want to be in the room with? And so I cut some toxic people out of my life. But I also started paying attention to the quality of people I surrounded myself with, the character, and the values that they shared. And that was fantastic. We have a fantastic team at the agency. They're all exceptional human beings. I can teach you how to be a great designer. I can't teach you how to be a great person, right? You are what you are at that point. So it's things like that. And, the big, hairy, audacious goal, like what's the moonshot thing you want to accomplish that you have less than 50% chance of actually succeeding at? All of these things that put down on paper and in your mind what you're about, what your value is, what your purpose in life is. Mine's to build things that bring joy and value to people's lives and to build healthy things for my family. Like that's what I'm all about. And so when opportunities or challenges arise, you can kind of look at them and say, does this fit that model or is this something that I shouldn't be a part of?
Yeah, yeah. Going back for a second to your comment about the who do I not wanna work with, you have a no assholes rule, right?
We do. It's on our website. We don't work with assholes, and that includes us. So none on our team, none on the client side.
Uh,
Life is
I
too short to work with bad people. So yeah.
I love that, and it's one of my goals, as a newer business owner, I can't have that rule yet, it's kind of like, you're
There
gonna work with whoever's coming your way, right? But I've told my team that, like, that's our goal is, like, we wanna get to the point where we get to decide, "No, we're not working with certain people." Not you, Christian, that's not you that I'm talking about there, but I've had some
well,
interesting experiences in a year and a half.
oh, we should have a beer sometime and trade stories because I
Yeah,
know you have. But
yeah,
your team is fantastic, like Louis and Rose, and you obviously are just wonderful, magnetic, thoughtful people. So you've got the team part right. The clients will come. You
yeah.
keep doing great stuff, and people will hear about it and show up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think, yeah, some of that is just like you collect the good ones over time and you keep them, right? And then when you have the bad ones, like you deal with them for a while and then, yep,
1,000%. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've absolutely been there. And I would say probably once a year, one sneaks through the armor, and we'll have one show up, and we deal with that appropriately. And we've walked away from projects when it wasn't a good fit. I have
Yeah.
to protect my team and our reputation. And again, life's too short.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to get back to the branding conversation. You have some great stories, and I'm just going to handpick one of them because I've heard you talk a few times, and so I know some of your clients. I think my favorite story is the Austin Beerworks story. Now we don't have the visuals, but I would love for you to just talk a little bit about how you approached working with that client and what you did for them.
Yeah, I am comfortable and confident in saying that the Austin Beerworks packaging, that can, is an icon that changed the way craft beer evolved after that point. And essentially, it started with four guys who were starting a brewery who were looking for a brand guy. I, in the beginning of my career, did a ton of music industry work, posters, packaging, you know, t-shirts, backdrops, you name it. And they had noticed that stuff and thought, what if that thinking was applied to a brewery? I kind of jujitsued that and didn't use any kind of music industry thinking at all for that. But what I did is I took these guys out into the field to retail stores and said, look at craft beer right now, right? Like everything looks the same. It's fields of wheat, it's mountains, it's streams, it's dogs, it's bicycles, it's crunchy kind of granola-y, very organic, very cluttered. And they were all playing the same game. And I said, call out the things you see, and then we're marking that off the list. We can't touch any of those. We have to do something completely different that comes from you all, your culture, your ethos, etc. And that resulted in this brand packaging that looks more like a superhero than a beer. You can recognize it across a football field. It's simple, it's bold, it's direct. It aligns very much with their character and their brewing philosophy and their sense of humor. Like the beer names were insane, Black Thunder, Fire Eagle, etc. And there was even a matrix for that, where you had to take words from Norse mythology, famous war campaigns, Chuck Norris, and something else, right? And you had to combine those together, slam them together to create a beer name, which people just loved. And it was an absolute juggernaut. It grew, they in the first year and a half, they surpassed their 5-year goals as a brewery in terms of volume and revenue. They were named the official beer of Austin. They got international press and international attention for the brand packaging and some other things we did for them. And it just skyrocketed. Everyone was in love with this little brewery in Austin that was so small and such a fledgling, but man, it was an absolute catapult
I
and a
love that.
fun ride. Those guys are fantastic.
Yeah, I love that story. So I live in Colorado, so when you were talking about all the things that
The
beer
epicenter for that. Absolutely.
but we actually have we have a cute little brewery, in our little town called Line, and it's so we have a river here, and the big thing here is, like, river, rafting, but, also, like, surfing on the river.
Yeah.
And so so Eddie Line is, the Eddie Line in the river, and they have all their stuff is very themed around river stuff, and it's really it's cool. I like it, but
I gotta
of course,
check.
I thought of like Fat Tire. There's a bike on the Fat Tire came from Colorado. There's the bike, right, and then there's the Coors, the mountains, and then I mean that's not a craft brew, but whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's
And
all very
funny
similar.
enough, because of that original Austin Beerworks packaging, kind of our first brewery, we ended up working with New Belgium. Like I've taken the bike up from the brewery,
Okay.
from the whole thing. Like we've worked with everybody, Sierra Nevada, Boulevard, all these breweries. They're just like the granddads of awesome craft beer we've gotten to work with because we did something different and they took
Yeah.
note.
Yeah, that's really cool. Is there a specific so beer was one of the examples, but is there a specific industry that that you work with, or like is it kind of any
It's somewhat broad, but really the majority of the work that we do are consumer packaged goods. And that may be Tecovas boots, or it may be, Jack Daniels, anything that comes in a package, we're really good at. And then hospitality, we're really good at. We branded one of Times Magazine's World's Greatest Places a few years ago. And I've worked with folks like Cedar Lake Estate and all these amazing, destinations that are these high end hospitality experiences. And that duality just comes from the stuff we're passionate about. We don't have semiconductor clients because none of us are passionate about semiconductors, but we love hospitality. We love consumer packaged goods, outdoor adventure like Howler Brothers. Like we play in those spaces a lot. And then there are little outliers that show up that probably wouldn't make sense on our client list until you meet the people behind them and you go, well, this is absolutely a Helms client.
Ah, interesting. Well, okay, Christian, one of the questions that I like to end with is if you could speak to your day one self. I'm always putting myself in that position, right? Like early on in starting your company or even that day one you that you were talking about in college, right? Like you didn't know what the future would hold for you. What is one piece of advice that you would give that day one version of you knowing what you know now?
Relax, dude. Relax. Everything is not do or die. Everything is not the hill that you want to die on. Sometimes projects don't work the way they should, and the client's not the best fit. But when they are, you got to run at it head first and over deliver. You got to put in 150% and will it to be. I think, yeah, absolutely. That's it. It would, my hair would be less gray had I had that advice earlier on, though I know I would listen to it.
It's funny to me that that would be the advice that you give because you're like the most relaxed person that I get to work with. Like you just that's the vibe for
Yeah, you
sure.
can be relaxed when you're good at what you do, and you guys are great at what you do, so it's relaxing. I'm like, "Here is a problem solver who is making my life better and is super enjoyable to work with." So, I can be relaxed. I can also not be relaxed, and you haven't seen that dude.
I don't want to see that guy.
He shows up a lot less than he did in the beginning, but he's still around every so often.
Well, that's the reality of owning a business, right? Like the
Bruce.
when those moments come and you can't avoid it. It's going to happen. So, well, Christian, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your authority X factor with us. Before we wrap up, I'd love to have you share anywhere that viewers or listeners can get in touch with you, learn more about you and Helms Workshop and what you offer.
Absolutely. Helmsworkshop.com is kind of the center of the universe for us. Grab me on LinkedIn. We're doing so much more on LinkedIn lately, which kind of plays into the book and a lot of the speaking things that I'm doing. And then you can find us on Instagram and all that fun stuff too. We're not on TikTok, but maybe one day. I don't know.
Maybe one day, maybe I'll convince you. We did not mention the book, I was like, I wasn't sure if I could drop that, but you did. So let's drop that for a second too. So you have a book coming out going along with all of your thought leadership platforms. So you are very present on LinkedIn. You're going out and speaking, and you have that book. Tell me a little bit about why you wanted to have a book in hand.
Well, it started because I realized over the past 15 years, a lot of my job has been coaching clients on the branding process and how it works and why it's valuable, what things to do, what things not to do, and all these little anecdotes that kind of build understanding of brand. And I wanted to put those down in one place that I could just hand to someone and say, hey, this is what we're about and this is what we do. And this is how it can create real value for you. And that sent me down the road of this book, which we're in like the last 10% of, which feels like 90%, but it's not. We're getting close. So
Yeah.
we'll be there
Yeah.
soon.
Well, I'm excited for you. I think that for anyone who is a thought leader in their space, which you definitely are, having a book not only just gives you credibility, it's a tool. I was going to say sales tool, but it's a resource, right? Like it's a resource for people,
Yeah.
and then also when you're going out and speaking is a great thing to have, just to be able to share with people, establishes your expertise. So I'm excited for you for that book to come out. We will be watching for that. And you want to drop the title?
Brand is your unfair advantage.
Love it. Love it. You did allude to that a little bit earlier. So I'm glad you did. And I'm excited for that book to come out soon.
Me
Thank you
too.
again, Christian, for coming on and sharing your unfair advantage and your authority X factor with us.
Thanks, Kelly. This was great.
All right. Thanks for watching. My book, Unlocking Your Authority X Factor, is now available on Amazon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See you next week.